All right, guys, man. I wanted to talk to y'all today about poetry, right? This is for my Let's Just Talk Poetry group, and specifically, you know, poetry as an expression. I asked a question in my Let's Just Talk Poetry group, and the question was on whether or not poetry could be written, whether or not poetry could be written as an expression. Could it? I mean, whether or not poetry could be or exist without words. Right. And then one of my members responded or replied saying that yes, poetry is an expression. Shout out to her. I forgot her name, but shout out to her. She was in my group and she posted that in my Facebook group. And it made me come to think and I was like, man, I want to talk a little bit about this. Poetry being an expression. And she was exactly right. I was like, man, does one need to or have to pick up a pencil? Does one have to you know, pick up a pen and start writing or typing poetry? Or is poetry in music? Is poetry music? Is poetry a beat? Is poetry a movement? Is poetry the way someone walks, the way someone talks, the way someone combs their hair, brush their hair, the way someone paints, the way someone runs, the way someone jogs? And I started thinking about it. I was like, man, yeah, that is poetry. Because the thing about poetry is when you are writing poetry, you're pulling from what you've experienced, you know? Like when I write poetry, all the poems I've written, I've experienced it. I've talked about what I've experienced, what it is that I've, you know, um, experienced throughout my life. I want to take the reader through the experience. I want to take the reader through what it is that I have been through. I want to let them feel, let them see what it is that I have gone through. And so when she said poetry is an expression, I was like, man, that is so true. It's not just words on a piece of paper. It's more about the meaning behind those words. What do those words mean? Being written on those papers, what do those words stand for? What are they symbolic for? You know what I'm saying? Like, poetry is genuinely and truly, for me, a breath of fresh air. It's an exhale. Poetry is an exhale for me. It's a it's that, you know what I'm saying? It's being able to kind of go, all right, you know what? I'm gonna surrender in this moment to my emotions, to my feelings, and I'm gonna just let it do what it do. I'm gonna let it do what it do. Sex could be considered poetry, if I'm being honest. It could be an expression of poetry, the beauty in, what I'm saying, even the Bible in many ways. I think Songs of Solomon is a poem, or I think it consists of poetry. At least the language seems very poetic. I'll put it that way. And a lot of it, I think, is also alluding towards sexual intimacy with the wife, and and then that relationship with Christ and His bride, stuff like that. But the essence of it being poetic in the sense of just intimacy. It could be poetry can be in a friendship that is strictly, you know, no sexual aspects of it, just strictly friends. That could be poetry. Poetry takes many forms, many shapes. It shows itself in many different ways. It it provides a level of relief. Poetry provides a level of relief that I think many other mediums cannot, you know. Um, Poetry is art. I know I have a poetry, Let's Just Talk Poetry group. Also, I have a Let's Just Talk art group. But the reason I separated it was because, strictly poetry can also be just words, right? We hear poems, things of that nature. But the grand scheme of things, when she said that poetry is an expression, when she said that, that really just made me think. And I was just like, you know what? She's right. Poetry is an expression. You know, it's it's more than just words on a piece of paper. Sometimes you can't even find the words to express how you feel. You just feel. And that's poetry. Just that feeling is poetry. Just wanted to talk about this for a few minutes, man. Wasn't gonna do more than about 5 minutes. It's almost 5 minutes now, man. But this is your boy Trey. Let's just talk Trey with Let's Just Talk Poetry, man. And until next time, peace.